the typical sit for an hour in a webinar. So has everyone seen the presentation before that Amber's done? No? Okay. You go. Oh, really? Okay.
Good.
Well, and we got Steve's going to join us, so we'll get a camera on too, and if we can we'll just keep this informal, and we'll start. What do you think, Wendy? Okay.
Yeah, probably. I mean, there are some people that aren't on, but.
Well, I saw John Kangas and Aaron Keatley were both signed up as well.
Okay. Well, John Kangas is on probably Wisconsin time because he's in the UP. No, I'm just kidding. we tease him a lot about that.
I could do just a quick plug of the spring forum.
Sure.
And if you're going to wait for him. So I just wanted to, I'm Wendy Ogilvie. I'm with the Grand Valley Metro Council and the Lower Grand River Organization of Watersheds. And right now we are in the middle of our Grand River Spring Forum, which is a little different this year. Instead of a day-long webinar listening to lots of people talk about watersheds and stormwater, we have 11 days of activities to get people out and about in the watershed and experience and see kind of more of what we do. So there are still activities available to sign up through Sunday, but I just want to thank Amber for being a part of this, and by recording this, we'll be able to have it available and be able to share it with our network. So I guess I could turn it over to you, John, to introduce Amber.
Okay. I think many of you already know Amber. Amber Hicks is a key part of the Michigan Infrastructure Council team, and she's been responsible for developing, along with our subcommittee, the portal, and she'll be demonstrating that to everyone. I think you're all familiar with sort of the process and the progress that we made through the 21st Century Infrastructure Commission, to the pilot, and now on to the Michigan Infrastructure Council. And we found out a lot of things along the way. The 21st Century Infrastructure Commission challenged the state to try to collect information, to gather what we could, to figure out all of the different silos that exist. During a gap between that and the start of the pilot, several of us went around the state gathering and collecting information, found a lot of different things. We organized the MIC, the state organized the MIC. The MIC has 9 voting members, 9 departmental representatives on it, and the cooperation and collaboration so far has been great. We have some pillars, we call them, some things we think are very important. The portal is one of those, and certainly probably the most successful right now, with the response that we've gotten to the portal in the short period of time that the portal's been up. It's just amazing. There are no others like it in the country, no models in the US that we can find. And it's really been amazing working through issues between the state and private utility owners, folks who spend their entire life being regulated to now volunteering information that they don't have to, and helping us to move this effort forward. So we're doing the portal, we're doing asset management self-assessments in our communities, and those have been going very well. We've just went through a process where we took 2,500 different definitions for infrastructure and narrowed them down into one page, because we found that and some of you know this, we found that when we were doing the pilot, that there was like 9 different ways to categorize a single piece of concrete pipe and all the different codes. So we now have a glossary that we're using that's consistent, and people have appreciated that. Somebody told us there's nothing like it that exists nationally, and we should copyright it. But it's the state of Michigan, so it's open to the public, and we're pleased about that. We also started a champions program, which we have 100 people in the state of Michigan who have been working together now for a couple of months, focused on asset management. And Amber, can you talk a little bit about the one that we're doing the mornings? for the private sector?
Sure. I believe, Brian, you might have even been
Yeah, I
at the
think
last one.
Brian's been involved in that.
Yep, the AM and the AM session.
Oh, I'm at the next one. Yep.
Yep. And so we are holding a 2-hour session for our consultant partners to, kind of fill them in on, what we've been doing in terms of asset management, the programs we have, and what tools we have to offer to assist so they can assist their clients, with asset management. And then the Champions program, Mark, you're participating in the Champions program. Yep.
Mark, you
And-
want to comment a bit on that from your perspective?
Sure. I had gone through previously when we had done this at the U Club, so it's kind of a cool overlap to see how that 2-day event got kind of split out into lessons. And it's just nice going through, again, talking points, because in my career at Eagle too, it's a lot of asking people to do things that they don't technically have to do. So it's finding ways to show the benefits that you can achieve with asset management in this case, but to get the goals that you are trying to do the cheapest cost possible. And that's your carrot at the end, which has been kind of cool to see how all that plays out.
Thank you. So we're working on about 6 different initiatives that have become successful in their different levels. I think one of the key ones, and one of the ones that was real important that came up when we did the pilot, we discovered that the Michigan Public Service Commission that regulates DTE and consumers and the rest of the major utilities, they required those utilities to provide their construction budgets over a year and 5 years, but there was no requirements to say where. They just, we knew for rate setting purposes that consumers was spending billions of dollars in the next 10 years upgrading their system, but they weren't under any obligation to say where they were spending it. And of course, like roads, my experience as a longtime road commission chairman was people would ask me, what are you going to build this summer? And I'd say, I'll tell you after the winter, because we spend the majority of our money in the winter. And if we spend more than we budget, that comes out of the summer construction. Well, the energy companies were the same way. How can we tell you what we're going to do in this long list of projects until we know if we have any emergencies or any failures or whatever? So we worked together with the Public Service Commission to provide some leniency for that. And some of our leadership of the MIC met with senior executives of the utility companies, say, just tell us, and you don't have to be exact, tell us, what are you going to do next summer? What are you going to do the summer after that? What are you going to do the summer after that? We understand there's a declining degree of certainty. That's just part of it. We know that. But if we can coordinate these asset changes with utilities and they're aware, the local governments are aware, we can move here in our agency, we can move road dollars around real easy. Do a construction project next year that would include the utilities versus do it this year and then tear it up, do it again next year. So they participated and they helped, and we started the portal, and the chairperson of the portal committee is Marco Brzano from DTE, who's an executive DTE, and he brought a great deal of knowledge and skill into the protections that the utility companies would need in order to provide and share this information with our local units of government or our consultants who are working for local units of government. So from that, we developed a process for the portal and security processes, because of course infrastructure is Homeland Security, critical infrastructure, and protected through Homeland Security. So we had a lot of standards that we had to work on, and we have to know who's accessing and how they're accessing. But Amber's going to give a presentation now, and we're open to questions in the middle. So just click your mic on, or if you can see the hand raise, Amber, then you can call on him, and let's just keep this informal.
Okay, yes. Once I start sharing my screen, I don't know that I will be able to see the hand raise. So there's only 5 of us here, 6 of us. Just
Butt in.
just stop me. All right. So give me just a second here. And
You've also found through these demonstrations that the state's computer system is slower than everybody else's.
yes, so yeah, I'll start with that disclaimer. That, you know, as soon as I start sharing and I'm on the state network and I'm VPN'd in and all the security, it runs super slow. So can everyone see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is the landing page from my login, and it's just going to take a moment. Okay. So this is the landing page for the MIC project portal. I've logged in through my login, which is the state's identity management system. Because I am a state employee, my login looks a little different than it would for a third party, but it's essentially the same. So I have a test account set up that I use, you know, for the purpose of these demonstrations. So that is why you're not seeing, you know, any active, pending, or completed projects. Typically, if, you know, you were, if your organization was, say, you know, the city of Lansing, you know, you would have, you know, a list of projects here, and you would have some numbers up here, but because this is a test account, we're not seeing that. So I am going to switch over to the project map view. And because this is a test account and I just want to demonstrate, you know, what we have in here, it's going to take a moment to load because it's drawing all of the geography for the whole state. Typically, a user is only granted access to a particular region, and those regions are the planning regions. So, you know, like, let's say, Brian, you know, if you had access, it would probably be in the Kalamazoo area. So your region boundary would be drawn, you know, somewhere in here, and you would only be seeing projects in this area of the state. So since this is a Grand Rapids area event, I will zoom in a little bit on the Grand Rapids area here. And maybe even a little more so we can see some more. So what we are looking at here, you know, it obviously is the Grand Rapids area. From this pane on the left-hand side of the screen, you have the ability to filter what types of projects you're seeing based on the asset type, you know, communications, transportation, utility, and water. And these are all, you know, color coded. And then you can also filter by project year if you only want to see, you know, the current year, or, you know, a particular future year, or you know, past projects. Obviously, there won't be any past projects to look at now since we just went live in March of this year, but in the coming years, you know, you would have that option. So the whole goal of the portal is to facilitate, you know, collaboration and coordination across asset types for, you know, upcoming construction projects. So what we are looking for are these instances here where projects overlap. And here's a great example right here. It looks like what, Fremont? Fremont, I'm sorry, but if you click on one of, you know, these overlapping segments, or, you know, any polygon on the map, and this is where it slows down all the time. So just give it a minute I promise it's not really this slow. It will display, the two different or three or four, whatever is overlapping there. It will display information for both of those projects.
If you were in Lansing instead of Livonia, this would be a lot faster.
Yeah. I feel like I need the Jeopardy song here.
Yeah.
I need a little music.
Sometimes it's slower than other times too.
I know.
It's
And
thinking.
it is thinking. It's coming. It's still thinking.
So while we're waiting for that, this went live in March, right? Early March.
Yes.
And we currently have how many projects, roughly?
Close to 10,000.
So in a statewide database, and to have people volunteer 10,000 different projects that are going on around the state. We're significantly more projects right now because we've been focused on that in the Detroit area. But okay, go ahead, Amber.
Okay. So finally, it picked up these two projects that I clicked on there. So the red is the utility, and that's a DTE gas project that is that was scheduled to start in December of 20. It's estimated to end, by the end of this year. And there's contact information for that particular project. And then the road project. This would be City of Grand Rapids transportation project. Supposed to start June of 2022, end of 23. And, that was the information that was provided. So there's no specific contact information. I will say that by and large, the transportation information that is in the portal, and I'm gonna jinx myself here by clicking on another segment there, is information that is imported from the TMC IRT, the investment reporting tool, and also from MDOT, their state transportation improvement plan. That is where the majority of all of the transportation project information comes from in the portal. It's updated on a quarterly basis. And because we are pulling it from another source, it's not coming straight from GIS files that we are loading. The fields don't always match exactly. So that's why we're not seeing like contact information for this particular transportation project. However, we are working with the technical folks at MDOT to come up with a way where they can pass us, the fields that we need so that we are able to display consistent fields across the board. So that will hopefully be coming, in the coming months as their time frees up and, budget frees up and so forth.
Hey, Amber, I have a question.
Sure.
So, okay, so see, these are intersecting, obviously, and the utility is supposed to be done at the end of this year.
Yes.
And then the transportation is not going to start until next year.
Right.
So is someone going to connect the dots and do this together, or like who is it up to the utility or up to the transportation? How does that work?
So it would be up to both, honestly, that, the users, for the, City of Grand Rapids and, the user of the utility from the utility company, would see that intersection. And, if it was in the realm of possibility, transportation dollars are sometimes, I think, a little bit harder to move depending on, whether it's federal aid or state aid. I know that there's, a lot of different deadlines and, it's either use it or lose it. So, just to have the conversation and see if that's even in the realm of possibility, moving something, either forward or back a little bit, to coordinate. The other thing too would be, and you'll have to forgive me, I thought I clicked on something here.
Aaron, Amber, you want to flip to if it's possible, the other side of the state where you can see multiple layers of projects
Yeah.
already in. And one of the things folks told us when we started doing this is people change and you often don't know who a project manager is or who from the utility company to call. At the same time, the utility companies were telling us that if they can coordinate water, sewer, gas, and roads together, that cost savings would be substantial, as much as 30% by working it all together in the same construction time period. Plus the impact on citizens is so much less because you don't have multi-years of construction, as you guys all have been through. So we work to try to get as much updated, considering this is, started in March, information that we could. But when like Detroit Water and Sewer or Great Lakes Water dumps 1,000 projects in, it's pretty difficult. But at least those warnings are, if someone wants to go from the city of Livonia and see where those gas projects are coming so they can make investment decisions, the tool is available. And we know it's being used because we've had people comment on it. They didn't know that a project they thought would be scheduled for 2023 is going to happen in 2021, that kind of thing. So
Right.
Go ahead, Em.
Yep. And then with that, I temporarily lost my train of thought there for a moment. With the overlapping, going with along the lines of what Wendy was asking. So even if, let's say, you're from company XYZ and you've loaded your projects, into the portal, say in January, and, we recognize this, you're not going to be checking this weekly or probably even monthly. It'll probably be on a quarterly, basis or, something along those lines. If another organization were to add a project that intersected yours or, was in close vicinity, you would receive an email notification notifying you that there's a project, that you may want to take a look at the map. And, that goes, both ways. So, that is one thing, you don't have to check it on a daily or weekly or monthly basis. If something changes right in the vicinity of, one of your projects, the portal will send automated email notifications, and you can control those, turn them on or off. But that's just another thing that we thought would be helpful. And that's honestly a piece of feedback that we got, as we were working with various groups and stakeholders on requirements for the portal, was notifications would be great.
So I have a quick question on the notifications
Sure.
in terms of how they're prompted. You mentioned if there's a project that's added that might be overlapping or maybe in near proximity to your project. I would wonder if it's possible to sign up for notifications of anything being added, say within your municipality or however you define your area. The reason I ask is I can imagine a scenario in which, knowledge of someone else's project may influence our planning. If I know they're planning something in our area, we might want to think about that.
Right. So you have the ability, and can you still see my screen? I changed.
Yes.
Okay. So you can change whether it's and this is just the way I have this account set up, but whether you want to be notified just of your municipality. So if you're the city of Livonia, do you only want to be notified of city of Livonia, or do you want to be notified of your entire region? So you have that option of deciding, you know, what you want notifications for.
That sounds very valuable. Looks good.
So one of the things is a challenge, and all of you probably are aware, is the private sector broadband companies. There's 14 broadband providers in the state. They are highly competitive around geographic regions and service areas, and lots of discussions and lots and lots of issues about how we can incorporate them, because since COVID, broadband is a key infrastructure that we're all aware of. However, they're structured different than, you know, Consumers Energy was with the Rural Electrification Act in the 40s. So they're not required to provide that last mile, and they're not really required to report where they're at. But we have had at least one volunteer to provide their information, because they see it as a cost savings, because they can work with the local municipalities on road cuts or other kinds of things, or if they're hanging on poles, working with those owners to be more efficient. So, you know, when you start to combine all of these kinds of things, and the early warning triggers and the, you know, being aware, as we just talked about, it can really help with the coordination of projects, so we don't have so many silos or independent decisions being made. So, okay, Em.
Right. So I was just going to show you here another instance. I probably should have clicked it, you know, five minutes ago. It timed out. Sorry. Just another area of overlap. It's probably going to take a second now. The other thing I wanted to mention too is that all of the projects that you're seeing on the map are have been loaded through GIS shapefiles. We, at this point, with the portal, we do not have a front-facing mechanism for users to, you know, drop their own files in and load them. So what we are doing is the organizations are providing, you know, their shapefiles. I am mapping them to the schema that we need for the portal, and then I'm using our DTMB resources to have them actually loaded into the portal. So that is what makes the most sense, you know, especially for the organizations that, you know, have hundreds, if not thousands of projects. I just handed one off this morning that had almost 2,100 projects. So that is not something that, you know, we would expect a user to manually draw onto the map. But, you know, in the instance that, you know, you just needed to add one or two, you users would have that ability to fill in project details, you know, date, start and end date, you know, location, who the contact is, if there's a website, you know, that potential partner could take a look at, and then they would actually draw on the map, you know, the boundaries of their project. Like I said, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the organizations that have, you know, hundreds or thousands of projects to add, but, you know, if it's just a, you know, one-off, or, you know, a few, even a couple dozen projects, that is there.
And there's a pretty simple questionnaire form that makes that easy to get those shape files and to do the
Oh, yeah.
dumps. You know, we're only looking for, it's a water line and it's going in between this intersection and that intersection. So it's not an engineering document. It's just a coordination facilitator document so that our local engineers and public and private sector infrastructure owners know what's going around in their neighborhood and they can work together. So it's pretty simple to do, just by doing what it is, who's in charge, and you know where it's going. So
Yep. And I work directly with you know, whoever that point of contact is, you know, for the organizations. You know, they can essentially just hand me whatever they have and I can get it mapped, you know, to what we need. But it's, you know, when is it, where is it, what is it, and who do we contact? You know, is really all it is.
and if we go out, go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, as we go out in time, we understand that there's less assurity that it's right. But in cases like Brian, like with you and your private sector, your public sector clients, they could very easily dump all their projects for all your clients into this, and then right away know that, you know, maybe next year consumers is going to do something. So, you know, let's wait and do that road repaving next year because they're going to cut it and let them pay for it. Or, you know, let them pay for part of it instead of, you know, not knowing what's going on. So
Yeah, exactly. So, well, as you know, we started a little bit of that pilot project down in the Kalamazoo County area, and we had a lot of all the surrounding townships and then also city of Kalamazoo lined up, and we were doing this. So my question is, this is awesome, by the way, that if would you want these communities to basically create the attribute fields that you're looking for, and then they can give you the shape files with the attributes all filled out so you don't have to do any input? Does that work for you, or would you guys prefer just to get the data and then you guys put that in?
Oh, if they wanted to do that and just, you know, hand over the shapefile, that would be fine.
Okay, yeah, as long as we have an attribute list, you know, all the fields
Oh,
that you want, we
yep.
can absolutely get all those fields populated.
Okay. Yeah, I am not a GIS person by any stretch of the imagination. So, you know, I know enough just, you know, to be dangerous. And so, yeah, anything that's in great shape would be much appreciated.
Yeah, well, we can make it fit exactly what you're looking for. Yeah, because I agree with you. We don't want to create any more work for you guys that need be, and the system is great. So whatever we need to do to make our, I guess our community's data conform to the format you need, we'll do that.
Okay.
And I guess then just a follow-up question is, would with the login, you know, obviously we work with a lot of different communities because they just don't have permanent staff to do that stuff.
Right.
So they take us on and off the shelf as they need us for things, but we help them maintain exactly these kind of maps. Is this something you would prefer to have the community have the login and then we would use that login on their behalf, or what's your guys' preference for how we interface with the portal?
So what we have in place, and these guidelines were just approved by the council on Thursday. So I'm more than happy to talk about this because this has been a question that's come up 25 times, you know, in the last just several months since the portal has launched. I'll just use Kalamazoo as an example. If you were working, you know, with Kalamazoo, so Kalamazoo, you know, the overarching organization would just fill out the agreement and name you as a user. And then we would just give you your own login.
Okay. And
But
so that would be a different login for each community that we work with. Let's say we had the same person in our organization that's like Ed Dempsey on our end does a lot of our GIS, and
Right.
or Dan Frizzo, would he have a separate login for each community then?
No, so what would happen is, so let's say Dan works for, I don't know, Kalamazoo, Battle Creek, and Marshall. I think those are all in the same vicinity.
Mhm.
So whatever community they're working for, would need to agree to, participate in the portal, but they would just name him as a user for, each one. But when I when I process those, for Dan and those communities, I'll just add those communities to Dan's profile. So those are who I can show you here. So if this was Dan, he would have like a list of organizations here
Gotcha.
that he would have, multiple access to multiple organizations.
Okay.
And Brian, it's been an issue because the actual asset owner may have multiple consultants.
Right.
And this is audited like every 6 months, every user by Homeland Security people at the state police. So it's like we have an obligation to control the security using their requirements, not ours.
Oh, 100% understand. Yeah.
Given Aspen, Colorado, and some of the other attacks that have been done on infrastructure, it's probably more rigorous than it needs to be, but not if there's a problem. So there is a process, and Amber can work through that with you. But like what we're doing with Regis is we're gathering all that information like you would be with your clients, we are with our teams, and then Jason's going to go through it and make sure it's all right. All the information in the details are already available. It's where is it, what is it, how much is it, when's it going to start, when's it going to end, who's in charge. It's all common stuff, that's already been approved by a city council or somebody. So we're going to format and do a major dump. As Great Lakes Water did a huge single dump of information, and then that way we're not typing out individual characteristics. But I'm going to have in our organization one person, because the security audit trail goes back from those customers to us.
Yeah.
Jason's butt's on the line on this. So we have to just be careful about that. And
Absolutely.
there's significant concern about from the large scale, City Grand Rapids serving water over hundreds of square miles, or Detroit Water, that the security precautions are in place to be safe. And that's why we're not including, where valves are and where water intakes are, and all the stuff that could be targeted. Yeah, it's on a street. It's a water line on a street. That's all we need to know.
Yep, exactly. We're not collecting any asset data. We are not collecting any condition data. Even if those, I'll use the last file that I handed off this morning. I think one of the layers, I don't know, it had over 150 fields in it. I mean, it had everything, and by the time I was done mapping, it had 12 fields. Like we don't even have a place to store it, if we wanted to. Yeah, we're at this point in time, just high level project information. It's not a repository for asset information.
Yeah, as you know, we're big proponents of this, so this is an awesome thing you guys got going here. Really appreciate all the work on it. It's right in line with exactly what we've been hoping to come through. And we're going to talk with all of our SAW communities that develop long-term capital plans and get everybody on board. Matter of fact, we've had these kind of discussions with all those communities before, and as you know, everybody in the Kalamazoo area is already on board. So we can get that whole area populated right away, and then we'll add all the rest of the communities we work with also. So hopefully in the next couple months we can see a whole whole big bunch of colors on the west side of the state.
That would be fantastic. And if you need anything from me to help, facilitate or, get others on board, just, feel free to reach out, let me know. And, even if it's another demonstration or, whatever you need to help facilitate that process, I'm happy to help.
Yeah, thank you.
I was gonna say Brian and his counterparts probably have a lot of information that would be very pertinent to this now, with all these new CIPs that small communities have that didn't used to. And even the ability to put stuff into the future, if they've got a CIP with guesses for 10 years, if they put that guess in the next 10 years, maybe something pops up earlier that allows them to do it cheaper and faster, or maybe they wait. But having that information for all those new communities will be really helpful on this map.
And to that, with the guesses or, the 10 years or whatever, the estimated project start and end dates, that is really all they are estimates. And it's honestly not even a required field. You could, it can be unknown. And that comes from several comments we got, in talking to people throughout the state about, well, what about our wish list? We don't have funding. We don't have a real plan. We want to do this, and we might be able to do it if somebody else was interested. And so, they have those wish lists. And so it is possible to have an unknown date and just have it on the map, just in case, that there's some interest, from another party in, collaborating or coordinating on some aspect of it. So, the hard dates, are not a worry, they're not a thing.
Yeah, that was going to be sort of my question of, does it have to be in a capital improvement plan, or does it have to be, a certain, plan to a certain extent?
No.
It's just, it could be a wish list, which is great.
Just be a
Okay.
demonstrative project.
It's a wish list.
Great.
We've also found, like, in rural townships that may have adjacent roads to cities and they share that, oh, they're thinking about doing that mile, because they usually do those dividers by miles. So they're going to do that mile, then we'll do the next mile and do it all as one big project. And Brian, you got that all over. I know you guys do, because you've done them for me. And so, they're just saying, wow, the township's or the road commission's going to improve this road on this borderline in 2023. Well, we'll do one too, and make one big project to save money that way. Amber, did you had this Great Lakes Water Project up now?
Oh yeah, it finally decided to highlight here. I'm going to try my next presentation not on VPN and see what happens. Just out of curiosity. But anyway, so this was just another area. I typically tend to go to this area because it's literally around the corner from me, and I just thought it was interesting. But so we have here, there's 3 projects that were, in this little highlighted area here. One from the Great Lakes Water Authority. Estimated start date, January this year. Not sure when it's going to end. High level location. Yes, underground infrastructure will be accessible, which is always, a big question. Some contact information, and it's a drinking water project.
Just
then
a
we have
quick
another.
question. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Amber. That accessible, will underground infrastructure be accessible? Just want to make sure I'm understanding. Is that basically the difference between trenchless or dig project?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And that's it's funny that you mentioned that. We struggled with how to convey that information. We originally started with the or not even terminology, the question, will the road be open? And so we got immediate feedback on that from our road partners that to them that means, will there be a detour, or something along those lines. And then we weren't sure if everybody would know what, trenchless, meant. And so will underground infrastructure be accessible? You know, yes, no. Will the road be cut? We tried that. We got bad feedback on that too. They didn't like that. And so this is where we landed. But, you know, this is an ongoing project and, you know, verbiage is subject to change. But yes, you are exactly right.
Our private utility owners also said, we don't need to know about the 1,000 miles of seal coat that's going.
Yes.
You know, what we need to know is the pavement's going to be gone and we can access what's under it. So
exactly.
So that was a learning tool.
That was one of the things that we had looked at too in ours and in the Kalamazoo pilot. And one of the thoughts we had was maybe asking the question, will excavation from the surface be required?
Okay.
And that was, so yeah, you're right. There's about 50 ways to ask that question.
Right.
And I'm just throwing that out as one way we had thought about it as well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're exactly right. There's a lot of ways to ask the question, and I think it means something different to everybody.
Right. Yeah, because you're right. The utilities typically deal with excavation or
Right.
not, and then the road folks typically deal with some type of surface reconstruction.
Right.
So it was whether will excavation from the surface or surface reconstruction be part of the project.
Yeah.
And that's obviously too long of a sentence to use in a field.
Right.
But you're right. So yeah. But you guys, it's the right track, right? It's trying to say, are we going to rip anything open or not?
Yeah.
Can I? That discussion. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to rephrase and say, you know, can I get to the fiber under the road?
Yeah. Part of this discussion that came about, I think, was helpful with some of the private utility, with consumers and DTE, was if we put a new gas line in an area that has such a crowded right of way, you know, should we leave the existing gas line to use as conduit? Or are there other, you know, so we're getting to the next level of that. And when you're working in southeastern Michigan where there is no space in the road right away, how can we better cooperate that way rather than do cuts and recuts or pull up old lines when they can be used for other things?
Mm-hmm.
So some of that work is also taking place as a result of things we've discovered through this collaborative process.
Yeah.
Okay, Amber, keep going. Sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. I was just going to say here the second project that was highlighted. It's an overhead DTE electric project. Again, see in this, well, if it's overhead, we're going to assume, I would assume that it the underground infrastructure would not be accessible, but they did not provide that field, so that's why it's unknown. But the contact information is there. And then we also have an underground electric project from DTE scheduled for October of this year. Whoops, I didn't mean to click off of that, but at any rate, you know, that's that type of example there, and the one that I showed a few minutes ago in Grand Rapids, those are the types of things, you know, that we're looking for. You know, we see some green under this red, and we can also, if it makes a difference, or you can adjust the opacity, you know, of the colors so you can see a little bit better, you know, what's underneath. And then of course, if we go over here, the map gets super busy. And we do have Great Lakes Water Authority in here. GWSD is actually the file that I just submitted this morning. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks here, we'll see another 2,000 water projects.
Yeah, this looks great. You
And
guys
this
have done a great job with this
area of the state. So there we go.
Mark, are you aware? Aaron was going to be on here, but are you aware how the self-assessments were used in the last grant opportunities through Eagle? the self-assessment surveys?
I'm not quite sure. I'm kind of stepping in for some of the whimsy things there. I believe they're getting sent out later this fall.
Okay.
The surveys, does that sound correct, Amber?
Yeah, but Amber, you want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah. So the asset management readiness assessment scale, though that was used as a question, a tiebreaker question for the DWAM grants, whether or not the community had completed the assessment or not. And so if they had completed it, and there was a need for the tiebreaker question, they were awarded, I believe it was 3 extra points for that. And I learned last Thursday that I think there were 123 or 126 communities that applied for the DWAM grants that indicated they had actually completed it. So that was pretty awesome. So we're hoping to be able to maybe include the portal as kind of a incentive in some kind, with all this new all these Rescue Act dollars and so forth coming in, that maybe the portal could be considered as I don't know, some incentive, because as of right now, we don't have any carrots and we don't have any sticks still. So it's all volunteer. So that, it worked for the DWAM grants, it was a good response. And so we're hopeful that, in the not so distant future, that the portal could be used as an incentive as well.
So we're starting to see that transition, that change in culture. Brian, you and I talked about before the SAW grants. And when I asked the question to the consulting engineers, the 600 people that were in the room at the time in Lansing, is there a standard for the SAW grants? Somebody yelled from the back, you mean in the office or in the state, right? And we learned with the portal that the state was giving out hundreds of millions of dollars with no requirement for any feedback, while at the same time we're trying to collect the information that's being studied through the SAW grants. And so we're starting to see these ties together now where, it should be a tiebreaker. If the state is going to give a community money and the community can't take the 1 hour asset management self-analysis tool, we got to think about that. It's not a regulatory requirement, but it's your choice. And I think we'll see more and more of that happen, and the portal will be the same thing. If you're going to use state dollars, whenever in the future, and you're going to have a project that's grant ready, you need to provide the information of at least the simple little categories that we have on how you spent it, where you spent it, just to help others in the state. And I think that's part of the thing is we're seeing other people get true value out of all of this. So we have about 5 minutes left. Are there any questions?
So I've got a question. It seems like everybody here on this call is already more than sold. And I think, for those in the state who are a little bit more proactive, who can see the value for themselves and don't need the carrot or the stick, how do we get started?
Well, you can start by you can either contact me directly. I'm going to put my contact information in the chat. Or you can send, apparently I can't talk and type at the same time. Send an email to MIC, just MIC @michigan.gov, and request the required forms, the PPA, the Project Portal Access Agreement, Individual User Agreement. You can get started that way. I monitor them both. That's why I say you can either contact me directly or at the MIC email box, because I do them both.
Right, and for us, what we might do, Steve, is since we're in the same boat here, we might coordinate through Ed Dempsey. And then we'll, like I say, once we have those forms, Amber, and we can get everybody going, we'll get every single client we can signed up on this, because we strongly believe in this.
Yep, I appreciate that. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for your participation in this Elgro event that became a MIC event, but
Yes.
and you guys that
It's
are on the
okay.
front lines, Brian, Steve, all of you, you just feedback directly to Amber or to me how you think. I mean, we've got folks all over the state that are working on this, and it's really interesting trying to judge. When we did the pilot, West Michigan paid out $55,000 to small communities to help them cover the costs to do the work that was necessary in the pilot, so we could fund that for 11 communities. We had 65% of the state already covered in terms of water use and sewer usage, but it's important that everybody participates because, as I told the Senate when I did the last testimony there, it's important that we reach the people who need it the most, and those aren't necessarily the largest users in the state or the most complex.
Right. Well, the average municipality is 3,000 in our state.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of small communities, but every drop in the bucket counts, and you can count on us to be advocates for this. We'll promote it as much as we can. Like I say, all of our client communities, we highly encourage them, or will be encouraging them to participate in this. And so, yeah, we'll be cheerleading as much as we can on this.
And let us help, Brian, if there's a way that, we can have a lunch in Kalamazoo and bring the Kalamazoo people together, then Amber and I will come down and meet with them and show them what we're doing. It'll last a lot faster than this has been, but.
Yeah. Well, that's no problem. And I guess I can speak from our experience right now. Is so far, I think, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say 90% of the communities we work with, we've talked to them about this type of thing, and they've all just been ready for it to happen.
Absolutely. We've been talking about the need for this for years, and most people see the value in the concept. It's just the challenge of, one, technically, how do you facilitate it? So you've solved that. That's great. And then the other challenge is, getting all the other stakeholders that they interface with to join on board. And that's where you get some kind of mixed reactions with other outside agencies that aren't always at the table. But I think the ones that we've actually sat down and had these conversations with, they're seeing value in it.
Great.
Great. That's
Well,
great.
thank you again.
Thank you so much, Amber.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
We'll have the recording up certainly on our website, the Elgro website, the GVMC website, and
yeah, I'll drop that in the
in the folder.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for all your work.
Right.
Great.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.